talk about the bigger picture. Let's talk about how we be ballin', playing with the Wizards. Let's talk about the Nats and how they always got good pictures. Let's talk about the Cats who rescue, turn them boys to winners. Injuries and updates, oh yeah. To the opponent, we stand toe to toe, yeah. To the top, this podcast gonna go, yeah. I think it's something you should know, yeah.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to episode 67 of Ref the District. I'm Nathan, that's Stoner, and that's Trev. Of course, we're doing our live stream of our podcast here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, which we do every week, Wednesday, 7:30 Eastern time in the evening. We got a great show for you today. And you know what? I'm just going to break it down real quick, and then we'll do some more talking introductions. All right. You hear Stoner's voice right there and Trev's voice as well. In the cool down, we will be talking about the Caps and their game one victory over the Florida Panthers. And then the game, we have none other than the Junkies EB joining us to talk some Commanders. We're going to go over the draft and maybe some other questions. We'll talk to him about the Caps as well. We'll throw that in there. And in our warm-up here, we're going to be talking about a question that Hogs Haven pushed out today, and that is whether or not the Commanders could just ship and deal away Taylor Heineke. Can they get rid of him? Can they cut him loose? That's coming up here on Ref the District. We're sponsored by Pacers Running. For every run they take care of.
I haven't done that in a while.
Yeah, it's been a minute since you've done that, Trev. Shout out to all those joining us on YouTube. Of course, if you're out there or listening to the podcast afterwards, just make sure that you hit that subscription button. We appreciate all the support that everyone gives. Kurt and Tanner all in the chat. It's been a bit. Like the draft feels like it was already a couple of weeks ago.
It does. Isn't that weird?
Yeah. Because just this time last week, we're doing mock drafts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Actually, it was the second annual Ref the District first round mock draft name. That's we still got to find a way to shorten.
I think we got to shorten it to RTD. But and the only reason we haven't done that so far, I think, is because the Richmond Times Dispatch.
Right? Michael.
Michael Phillips RTD. Right. So it might get confusing, but. So I don't know. Should we just call it the RTD first round mock draft? See how easy that was?
I kind of love the obnoxiously long name. I really
second
do.
Annual Ref the District first round mock draft.
Yeah, that's
so like
too much.
The third one will be even more. We'll get there. Yeah, Doug Tanner. We did do some interviews at the live draft, and Doug Williams was struggling to say the name. Actually, quite a few. We actually were trying to show off our shirts to be like, just say, read the shirt. And even like Fred Smoot was this like ref to the district, and it was just like.
Logan Thomas said ref in the district. So, all you got to do is read.
They said ref. They said the and district and some kind of botchery. Right. So it's all that matters to me.
Yeah, it's all good. It was a lot of fun. Let us know which one of those interviews that you liked the most. We are going to be cutting those up for our YouTube channel. And we'll probably put those out on audio platform as well, depending on quality. So it might be a little bit better to listen to it instead of I did not realize when I stood up how much of my inner nostrils you can see. So that was a little less than exciting. Trev, you didn't let me know, but when I was looking when I was looking at our guest, which you were probably looking at our guest as well, like the camera was so far below me because I started standing there towards the end that you just gotta look up my nostril.
Yes,
Tanner, exactly. It's like rep, right? Yeah, but instead it's ref. So it's actually a play off of Rep the District, and we thought sports terms. Hey, ref, so we're ref the district. We hold them DC accountable. Yep.
We hold DC sports teams accountable.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Milton, shout out to you. Great comment Milton had. Hopefully the mics on those two are working accordingly. Sorry, and actually, Milton, this topic is actually really for you. So Hogs Haven, let's get into it for the warm-up here. Hogs Haven posted an article by Mark Tyler on whether or not Washington Commanders should cut ties with Taylor Heineke?
Mhm.
Trev, how do you answer this question?
Notorious Heineke hater, Trev.
I'm going to answer it 2 ways. My heart, get him the hell out of here. I'm ready. I'm over it. See ya. Bye.
Yeah.
Cut him.
Right.
See ya. Thanks for your services. Whatever. But my head says you got to keep him for this year because Sam Howell is still so raw. I don't care. We did get him 5th round, which is still very good value and good talent at 5th round, but he is raw. And I'd much rather him learn behind Taylor this year. So when he takes Taylor's spot, because that's what he's going to do, he'll be ready to go when called upon. That's just illogical. Keep Taylor this year. Let him kind of mold Sam, because like we saw Tannehill say, it's not my job to mentor Malik, but if he learns along the way, cool. Well, now that we have Carson, let Carson do his thing. We got Taylor, who's been in the starting role before, obviously. He can kind of do the mentoring and help develop Sam Howell. Because they're kind of similar in size, similar in styles of play. It's just Sam Howell has a stronger arm and better attributes than Taylor, but they're similar in the thick of things. So heart says get him out of here. Head says keep him for 1 year and then get him out of here.
Yeah.
No longer than 1 year.
Stoner, you've been kind of back and forth with Taylor Heineke. Where you sit with this one?
Yeah, I mean it's a no-brainer to me. You have to keep him. He is an invaluable piece for this team right now, right? He's the carryover in the quarterback room. He's the one that's going to help Carson Wentz more than he's going to help Sam Howell, because he knows this offense inside and out. So he's going to be the one to talk to Carson when maybe Carson's looking at things. Who am I supposed to be looking at? And Taylor, because we know Taylor knew that playbook inside and out, right? He had played that same type of offense. He had played in Carolina under that staff, under the same staff that's here. And, he's the Mr. Brainy. Remember, he was taking that crazy class beforehand, whatever. We know he's a really smart guy, and he knew that playbook inside and out. So I think it's important that you keep him just for that institutional knowledge that he has. And you don't have to spend resources that you need to focus on Carson.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to spend those on Heineke because he knows what's going on. He knows the offense. Right. There's going to be new stuff that he'll have to pick up. But no, you absolutely keep him. Because
1 year.
You do not want Sam Howell taking any snaps during the regular season of 2022. 0 snaps. If he's on the field, you're in deep trouble. If Heineke's on the field, you're in trouble, but not deep trouble. So yeah, I mean,
you're still in deep trouble, bro.
I wouldn't even trade him for like a 4th rounder if somebody offered it. No, I wouldn't even do that. You got to.
Well, no, not this year. This year?
Yeah, this year. That's what I'm saying.
No, yeah, you have to keep him this year. You have to. As much as I hate saying it, you have to.
I don't hate saying it. I'm going to make it 3 for 3 here in the keep Heineke camp. Mm-hmm. I just think that it's smart. He Stoner talked about the being the holdover. Caleb even mentions that he knows the system best right now. We've talked about how he is a very capable. He's a high end backup. They only have him on roster for $3 million. Like Trev, you kind of give me that little look there, but he's a high end backup.
He's a high end backup.
How many wins does he have as a backup?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
6 or 7.
No, he doesn't have any as a backup.
He started as a backup and then became the starter, so he is a backup. He wasn't a projected week 1 starter at all. He also came off the bench as a backup and then became starter. So in that case, how many wins does he have?
He's probably 7, way better than 8? most of all the backups in the league. I mean, how many backups are better than him?
Name better backups than him right now, Trev.
Tyler Huntley, Chase Daniel. You can go ahead and say Brian Hoyer, as old as he is. You can say that.
No, I wouldn't give you that one. But I give you those other 2 that are probably in the same league.
Yeah, they're probably in that same bucket.
Much better.
But he has more starting experience than them.
Right? But he just he might know the playbook the best, but it doesn't mean he executes it. And you clearly saw that on the floor.
He has limitations.
On the floor, on the
he
field.
absolutely does.
He was not making the correct reads at all, and he knew the offense. But bro, make the correct read then if you know the offense. So I get what you're saying, Stoner. And everybody he knows the playbook inside out, but he didn't execute it very well. He just didn't.
You're right. But would you rather have that, or would you rather have?
No.
Give me a name, not Sam Howell. Give me a name of a backup. Brian Hoyer. Would you rather have Brian Hoyer as your backup, or would you rather have Taylor Heineke? And again, Taylor Heineke is just somebody that you can put in for a spot start or play a couple of quarters during a game if Carson gets hurt.
Or an entire season when your QB1 goes down with a hip injury.
Yeah, you don't want him playing any sort of significant time.
No,
but
you don't.
If you have to, then he's probably one of the better people that you're going to be able to put in there. So
is Jordan Love better? We don't know that.
I think that people would believe that his ceiling is higher. Jordan Love's ceiling is higher.
I think what we saw
he's better right now is another
is what you're going to get no matter what. Starter, backup. What we saw last season is what you're going to get at Taylor Heineke no matter the role.
Yeah, that's not terrible.
It is terrible.
It's not great, but
you can win games if you game plan correctly with him.
Yo, we could win games if we game plan correctly. That doesn't really mean anything.
There you go.
He's not.
But he won 7 games with limited roster around him, with limited weapons, and that's what you need from a backup.
Yeah.
You're not asking him to come in and win 10, 11 games. You're asking him to make a spot start here and there and not throw up all over himself.
And what did he do? He did that all season long.
No, he didn't. He had a section of very good games. But overall, no, he's not a starter. But he is capable
I'm
of
with you.
going
Keep
in
him
and
this
playing.
year, but you cannot keep him after this year. Get rid of him.
Well, it depends on the situation, but probably not. You probably don't need to. You drafted a guy that hopefully is going to move into that number 2 position for next year.
That's the hope. Or if you're Milton, you want Howell to be the starter in 2024.
Yeah, Milton loves him some Howell.
I will say this. If you want Howell to be the starter in 2024, I think you need a couple things to happen. One, that's for Wentz not to be good. And that's for Heineke to stay that number 2 spot because you don't want Howell forced into action too early. Because if you see him be raw, if you have him, then you're just going to cut ties and you're going to find another QB.
I don't really see, but I mean, I think Sam could come in and do probably almost the same thing as Taylor Heineke did production wise. To be honest,
yeah,
I really do.
I don't see it.
I
don't
Taylor
get this
really
love
didn't.
For Sam Howell. I
Think about it. Taylor's stats were because of J.D. McKissick, because of yards after catch. It really wasn't. I mean, Taylor scrambled a little bit, kept plays alive, but like
catch because he was getting balls late out and stuff like that.
Yeah, so like that's what I'm saying. Like he won games, but like he wasn't.
Scott Turner probably doesn't get enough love for what he was able to do with the limitations that Taylor Heineke brings to the table. But even then, we're talking about, like I said, the guy. We want this guy here to be holding the clipboard, right? We want him here to, in case Carson Wentz, and people love to say that he's injury prone, but that's a little bit blown. Be prepared for the Commanders to give up that 2nd round pick because he will be playing almost all of the snaps for the Commanders at QB. And if he doesn't, then things have absolutely gone off the rails. And then, you want Taylor to start those games because this schedule looks like it could be winnable. And you want to do that with a QB that knows the system and not necessarily with a rookie. And I disagree with you. I'm not as down on Hal as Stoner. Stoner, you seem pretty down on Hal. I'm not as high on him as Trev and maybe some of the others, but I do like Hal. He was one of the ones. He was probably I'd probably take him my 4th QB. I in this draft, and so he went as the 5th QB. But I liked him.
That's not saying anything. One of the worst draft classes for quarterbacks, and he was the 4th or 5th best. That's not saying much at all.
Yes, it is.
I see one quarterback drafted in the 1st round.
I see the potential with him. That's what you want in a young QB is at least potential.
I'm going to ask you guys the same question, and I know we're kind of morphing into Howell rather than Heineke, but my question is, how many 5th rounders are currently starting in the NFL?
We don't know that because we only cover Commanders. I bet it's a lot. I bet it's more than we actually think, to be honest.
No, it's not. I can tell you right now. I've done the research. There's
no matter
Tom
what
Brady.
there's Tom
quarterbacks
Brady. Or players.
quarterbacks
QBs.
I'm talking about.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Just QBs. Yeah, it's Tom Brady and
there's
no
Tom
one else?
Brady and nobody else, and that's an outlier. That's a unicorn. You never find that. So I think we just gotta temper our expectations on this Sam Howell business that he's going to be the starter next year or the year after. He's just not. It
You
just
don't
doesn't
know
happen.
that, bro.
But you
don't
again, this is a
know
week
that.
after the draft. You just have hope, right? You want that.
Yeah,
You're not.
man.
Don't put that expectation on it. This is something I will agree with Stoner here. Is you don't want to put that expectation that Hal's going to be the starter, the future starter, or future. He's not going to be Tom Brady. Don't put that expectation on him.
He's going to be our backup right now.
But at least you can set high hopes for him in like, hey, he's still young, he's still raw, and maybe he develops into the QB, of the future, right? That's the best case scenario here for the Commanders is they just happen to draft their QB of the future in the 5th round. But you don't want to set that expectation is the problem.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean,
EP with maybe Hal as our unicorn, Stoner. Maybe.
Yeah, you don't know that, bro.
You're right. I just go with the odds. I just look back in the history of quarterbacks that have been drafted in the 5th round or later, and you can probably count on one hand who have been successful.
It is very few and far between. We do have somebody who's going to be joining us here who has been successful in his career. Coming up for the game, it is EB from the Junkies. Coming up right after this. The game is brought to you by Pacers Running Stores. Pacers has 6 stores in Northern Virginia and DC. For the best running footwear, apparel, and gear, just stop by or schedule a virtual fitting with the best running experts in the business. Pacers Running exists to help as many people as possible through running. For every run, it's Pacers Running. Whether or not you listen to the Junkies or not, I guarantee you know our next guest. This is Eric Bickel, better known as EB from the Junkies 106.7 The Fan, joining us here on Ref the District.
How are you
What's
guys?
up, EB? What's happening?
What's up, EB? How you doing, bro?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, hear you great.
All right, perfect.
We had a bet before we went live on 2 things. One, whether or not you'd be outside.
Yeah, I love being outside.
And number 2, whether you'd have a drink in your hand.
Oh, both.
Damn, EB, I was close. I was like, I don't think he'd have one tonight, but you have one. So
no. I actually took yesterday off, but today I got to get back on the horse.
Get back on it. All right, before we get into our questions all about the Commanders and all that, we wanted to touch real quick with you about the Caps win last night. And I think you said it today on your show is that this is the first time all year, and it's the playoffs, where you were locked in to the game, which you hadn't done for any game all year. Did your confidence level go way up on whether or not they can win this series?
I actually was sort of sneaky confident going in, to be honest with you, because I know this is a good team. I thought we were the best 8th seed that, in my short memory of hockey. I like the fact that we have lower expectations. And the fact that the Panthers haven't won a playoff series since 1996, trust me, until you've done it, that is a huge mountain to climb. And so I just felt like with reduced expectations that, look, Ovi's had an unbelievable year. There's no reason to think that they can't get hot for a few games. Just need to get some good goaltending, which I know has been dicey this year. But, we have Lars Eller on every week. And maybe I'm stupid, and you could easily make that argument. But I listened to Lars, and he says that the guys have full confidence in him. And I believe him. He's one of their guys. They're going to do everything they can to protect him. And, that was a dominating comeback last night. They could have won that game by 4 or 5 goals, I think. So I thought it was very impressive. Look, I've said before the series, JP and I were both kind of in sync on this. I said I give him about a 40% chance. After that, I'm not going to go crazy. I'll say 50, okay? But I really like where we are right now. I think they're in a great position.
We had Sammy Silber on earlier this week talking the Caps, and we asked her to look into her crystal ball. And I'm going to ask you the same thing. Look in your crystal ball. How does this series end? She picked Caps in 7, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know. Our buddy Barstool Nate, I saw pick the Caps in 5. He's a huge.
That's really bullish.
He's a real homer like me. You know what? I want to say Caps in 6. It just sounds good to me. It feels right. I certainly don't want to pick against them. I just like their momentum, especially if they can find a way to win tomorrow night. That would really, really be nice. Because remember, we all know this, they haven't played that well at home. So if they could steal 2 on the road, that would be a huge advantage in their favor, obviously.
Well, good. We will be live tweeting that game, and then Stoner will be bringing on his Stoner recaps and here on our YouTube channel, breaking down the game and what happened. Let's shift over to the Commanders talk. It feels like the draft was ages ago, but it was just last week. You've had a little bit to process, and you've probably talked about it quite a bit on the show, but what is your feeling of this? Maybe not grading the draft, but how do you feel about this draft class?
I actually feel pretty good about it, to be honest with you. I know that they got heavily criticized for so-called reaching on a lot of these picks, and it certainly didn't help them when guys went to the podium and thought they'd be picked 2-3 rounds later and tell everybody. I mean, that was hysterical to me. But, at the end of the day, all that matters is if these guys can play. And I thought for the most part, they got need. They went after needs. The only one I would quibble with at the time was the running back pick in the 3rd round. I thought that was a little early. I didn't even know they were really in the market for a running back. But then I slept on it. And I really thought about it. I go, there were times last year where I was over Antonio Gibson. I mean, there really were. I mean, there were times where with the fumbles and just, sometimes he's spectacular, but he's very hit or miss. We all can see that he's not a natural tailback, and that there are still times there where you feel like he's learning the position still. So, you know what? If you want to get a bruiser, a guy that's played running back presumably his whole life, a change of pace guy, a guy that could use in short yardage, from a school like Alabama, who might argue? You know what I mean? Right. My biggest thing with the draft is I love how guys watch 2 minutes on YouTube, 5 minutes before they pick, and then they're upset they didn't pick their guy. Well, hold on. You're not Mel Kiper. You haven't been watching these guys all year. You have no idea. So I'll defer to our guys. I mean, I personally would have liked to have seen the receiver from Alabama. I've already forgot his name.
Jameson Williams.
Yeah, I personally, I would have preferred to get him and then trade down in the 2nd round to get those picks. That's the approach I would have taken. But listen, this is what these guys do for a living. I love the highlight clips I've seen of Dotson in his hands and just snatching balls out of the air. So look, at the end of the day, I wanted them to get a receiver. I wanted them to give Carson Wentz every opportunity to be successful. And I think they did that. So I'm very happy. Very happy. They got a receiver. Might not have been my guy, but he's my guy now. So I'm all in. The only thing I didn't love was, I mean, we all know we need linebacking help, but I think that's also part of the reason why they drafted a tackle from Alabama in the 2nd round. Is, listen, if your linebackers aren't making a lot of plays, look, we already know they lost Settleinitis and all that. But if your linebackers aren't making plays, you need those D tackles to make plays up front, right? And so I think it's a great, maybe it's not a value pick per se, but a guy from a premier program, has got great size to him, was captain of the team. I mean, what's not to love? I'm not going to quibble with that one either. And
then I'll give you a whole list of things.
Well, listen, you might, I'm sure there are others that are better, but for us, he might just work. I heard John Keim talking about it, and some of the scouts that he spoke to said, he's a guy that is okay. He's comfortable battling double teams. Maybe Deron Payne is not necessarily as adept at that. He's comfortable battling double teams. What does that do? That helps your weaker linebacker core, right? So I do think we have to at some point, and believe me, I criticize this staff when I feel like it as much as anyone, right? When I see things, and I'm just an idiot. So I'm not afraid to criticize them. But at the same time, I do give them credit. This is what they do for a living. They obviously saw some things that they liked in this guy. And so they think he fills a need. And so now it's on them. Now, if this guy turns out like Jamin Davis and makes like one play all year, then I think it's okay to kill him. But a week after the draft, I kind of like what they did. I love the tight end that they got. I mean, I think that guy, and I lobbied for that for a couple weeks before. I kept telling Jason, Logan Thomas is 31, 32 coming off an ACL. ACLs are cool. Guys come back from that, but it's not like a 23-year-old coming back from an ACL. Might take a little longer. You know, you just don't know. So we got a real pass-catching guy, it looks like, a little raw, but some athletic big guy. I love that pick.
6'7" is going to be a monster in the red zone. So
I love that pick. So, you know, I like what they did. To me, it's all about, did you feel the need? I'm not going to quibble with the guy. I'm going to take your word that, you know, you study these guys and he has attributes that you like for a reason.
All right, EB, I'm going to kind of take focus off the draft, but stick with Commanders. Is there any real steam behind the Commanders and Landon Collins for a possible reunion? Is that because Chad Dukes put that out on Twitter? That's the only thing I've seen. Are you hearing anything?
What did Chad say?
He said he's heard rumblings pretty much. I'm paraphrasing that. There's interest on both sides from Landon and Commanders about a possible re-signing.
Chad Ryan, right? Just to clarify.
Yeah. Chad Ryan. Chad Dukes is Chad. Yeah, Chad Dukes.
Dukes has left the Commanders fandom for the Titans.
Sorry, Chad Ryan. Sorry, Chad Ryan.
Listen, here's what I do know. I'm not going to sit here and act like I have any inside information. I don't. But what I do know, I think has been reported, is that they went to him to restructure once, and he was fine with it. But they went to him to restructure twice, and at that point, you know, being a veteran, I think he felt a little insulted. He said, no, I'm going to check out my value. But if you came to me today and you said, you know what, Landon has looked around and maybe the street value isn't what he thought, and he's open to coming back here, I buy that. I buy that as a possibility for sure. And that would be, honestly, that'd be a great value because, look, we all know who Landon is at this point. I think a lot of us knew who he was before last year, but certainly
before he's willing to admit what he is.
But certainly we know how he can best be utilized, and I think the staff does. So if they can come to an agreement, listen, I always say that the cap is just a pencil game. So just figure it out. I don't care. Push the pencil, figure it out. If they get 3 or 4 million, whatever, something where they can just, you know, make some easy moves, I'd be all about it.
So speaking of money, you were talking a little bit about money with Landon Collins. Let's talk a little bit about the elephant in the room with this team and contracts, and of course with Terry McLaurin. And I know you've said that you heard simply a rumor that they put a first offer out there, just kind of talking, not a real offer, but a very low offer out there. Do you think it gets done before the year starts?
I actually do think it will get done.
I think we all do. Yeah.
I do think it will get done. The only thing that gives me a little pause is I did hear from somebody who's given me good information in the past. So, you know, I mean, it's not a journalist, but somebody that has, you know, information about some of this stuff. And he said that there was some sort of verbal communication, and Terry was a little disappointed in the first sort of discussions, you know. But you know what? I've been in a million negotiations, and I'm always disappointed in the first discussion. That's kind of how it works. And I really, truly think, look, one of my criticisms of Ron Rivera is I think he's a little too concerned with what the fan base thinks. You know what I mean? And he knows how valuable not only Terry is to the football team, but how valuable he is to us, the fans, right? So I just don't see a scenario where we're going to quibble, you know, even over a few $1 million in a $9 billion a year industry, right? And TV revenue. We're going to quibble over that when we got a guy literally you want your daughter to marry. You know what I mean? This guy is everything that you want, as far as I can tell, in a human being. And he's a spectacular football player too. So I personally would be all about it. I think they're going to get it done. I think they're just addressing the rest of the roster. And, you know, hopefully they come correct. Look, it's more difficult with these other deals, but by the same token, it also solidifies his value, right? Doesn't it take away some of the guessing work? Because you see all these guys making all this money. I mean, there's just no denying he's worth X amount, you know, in that in a $2 or $3 million per year ballpark. It just is.
Yeah. I know Coach Ron Rivera talked a little bit about that with the AJ Brown deal and saying that they are different players, and Terry, plays his own game and stuff. So, I agree. I think it'll get done sometime in July for that. And, we have this question from Tanner here. You brought up the rosters. They're building out the roster. Do you feel, with the exception of linebacker, do you feel like this roster is pretty deep across the board? Tanner feels like it is.
I got to think about it. I'll be honest with you, and I'm just being reactionary, but I'm not real high on the defense. And maybe it's just because I've been suckered on it the last couple of years, but I really thought last year's team had all the ingredients. And I'm kind of on purpose being hard on Chase. But, Chase's second year was a disaster. Let's just be clear. He played 9 games, 1.5 sacks, and I know it's more than sacks. But he's got to give us more. We've drafted him to be Bosa, to be a Watt, and he's not. He might be in marketing-wise, but he's not on the football field. And that I'm just holding him to a very, very high standard, right? And then when he and Montez talk about breaking records and all this, and then between them have, like 5.5 sacks, when you're like 30 away from the record or whatever it is. What are we talking about here? So I've been very disappointed. I think our secondary is dicey. I think our linebackers are fairly atrocious. So I don't think I would say that about the defense. Who doesn't? I love Cam Crow. I loved him the moment I saw him, right? That guy just had a nose for the football. Love him. But if I looked at the defense right now and I'm looking at the roster, he's the only guy I love on defense. He's the only guy I love.
You don't love Jonathan Allen?
He's fine. I think he's fine. I think he's fine.
Yeah.
He's not. He doesn't right.
But he's not. I can't think of a comparable. He's not. He's the guy with the Rams that makes all the plays.
Aaron Donald.
He's not Aaron Donald.
Aaron Donald's on a level of his own, though.
I know what you mean. When you say the defense, you're not like, oh, Jonathan Allen's on the line. He's just a part of.
He's a very good player. He's a very good player.
I understand where that's coming from. So I want to go back to Gibby with that Brian Robinson pick. Do you think that's like a wake up call to Gibby? Like, yo, this could possibly mean like your job is not jeopardy, but like it's a wake up call that we're serious about your fumbling issues. We're serious about your lack of awareness sometimes. Like, is that what that pick you think was about, or just the Peyton Barber role?
I think it's all that. I think it's hey, man, if Gibby gets hurt, we need somebody who can fill in. Obviously, we love what J.D. McKissick does, but he's more of a pass catching guy. You know what I mean? Although when they give him the ball, I love it. And Jared Patterson loved the story, but he hasn't proven that he could carry the load if Gibby went down. And let's be honest, the fumbling stuff, it's an issue. It's an issue. And so, and he's a short yardage guy, right? It looks like he's a powerful guy that we
like
really didn't have. Yeah. So, I think in a lot of ways, that pick might end up being borderline brilliant. I don't want to go crazy with it, but
I like that.
It might end up
fourth running back in 5 years in the draft, by the way. Geis, Love, Gibson, and now Robinson. And this is the one that they're going to hit on.
Well, he's a true running back. Gibson wasn't a real true running back. He was a guy who played that position in college.
Love was a true running back, injured. Geis was a true running back. Injuries kind of derailed him, and off the field issues as well.
Listen, I'm not saying he's going to be Pro Bowl or anything, but I think that he's an insurance policy. He's a short yardage guy. He's a Gibby. If the NFL is not for long, so watch what you're doing. We got a guy here that can play this position. And let's be honest, man. Running backs rarely see their second contracts. So
it's true.
In a lot of ways, it might be a sneaky smart move. I'll just say that.
I like that.
Yeah. I'm cautiously optimistic about this team. I kind of always am this time of year. I remember doing podcasts last year and be the same way. But I really do think, obviously we were arguing about it today. The $1 million question is, how's your quarterback going to play, right? And the thing that irritates me, and I know the Stoner knows this, is that people act like Carson Wentz is garbage, like he's trash.
And
he is not trash. He's not great, although he's played great at times. But I'm not going to sit here and say he's great. But he is good. And he's kind of like Cake's brother. It was a good, I thought, comp today. He's kind of like Kirk Cousins in this way that he puts up big numbers every year and everyone just says he's garbage, right? Like this dude can play. He can make all the throws. I heard a scout when we acquired him say he's like one of the 9 guys on the planet that can make all the throws, like legit make all the throws. So, I mean, does he have decision-making things that he needs to work on? Does he need to take the layups, as they say? Yeah, sure. Does he need to stop with the left-handed stuff in the end zone under duress? Of course. Is he going to play poorly at times? Yes. But we act like he is garbage, and he's just not garbage.
He's not.
I'm cautiously optimistic on the offense. They always goof on me, but McLaurin. If Samuel, I saw the video of Samuel running with. I was stunned by that. If they have Samuel back, De'Ami Brown was a huge disappointment. But maybe, he did trend a little better late. I think this kid Dotson is a very high floor guy. So even if he's not who we are hoping, even if he's not like a 10-year, 5-time Pro Bowler, I bet you he's in this league a long time. I bet you he's a guy that could pretty much give you 40 to 60 catches in his sleep, depending upon how you target him. So I just feel like, and then their tight end situation, Logan, when healthy, is way better than anybody ever imagined. Bates stepped in and played very well when given an opportunity. And the offensive line at times has played pretty well. So I'm cautiously, if the defense can hold up their end of the bargain and they can only get better from last year, our schedule's easier. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm sorry. I'm not going crazy. I'm not saying 11, 12, 13 wins.
Right. But more than 7 at least, right?
I would be stunned if, barring catastrophic injury, that we only won 7 games again. That would stun me. I think they're better than that. I think they're 9, 10, 11 wins. In 9, 10, I think is a fair range. Win a couple that, we surprise people, which we always do. We always surprise people because I know it. Because I put all my money on the other team because I get so frustrated, and then we end up winning.
Tampa Bay. Right.
We do it all the time.
Right.
So just don't blow a couple games that you really, really should win.
Right.
Sneak in a couple where we always sneak in a couple, and I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to pop this question in there for you. But if you were betting, would you put money on Carson Wentz to be the Commanders' quarterback? Let me just say next year, the 23.
Shout out for Milton there with the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't put a lot of money on it, but like I said on the show, I think I'm 60-40 on it. And that might – I'm 60-40. Listen, I'm perfectly aware that he can play poorly at times. And this fan base is going to be fickle. And now that they drafted Hal, who I actually really like talent-wise, I could see maybe if he really plays poorly, there could be some pressure. But what I love about – and we haven't even talked about Hal – what I love about what they did is – by getting him in the 5th round, that eliminates the need to have to see him play right away. Let him, ideally in a perfect world, old school. Let me see what you got in 3 years. Let me see 2 years of preseason crap. Let's get 2 years of reps. Let's learn everything, right? Let's get bigger, stronger, faster. Let's get smarter. And let me see you in 2-3 years what you could do, because he has physical ability. I think he's got physical ability out the wazoo. He's got a ton of it. So and by getting him in the 5th round, you don't have to force the kid to play right away, which I think we're ruining guys at arguably the most difficult position to play that I know of in team sports. Beyond like being a goalie or something. Like to be a quarterback at the NFL level and to be you ever play quarterback at a turkey bowl with your friends and try to
it's still the most important position on the field.
I throw interceptions all the time. I get flustered. The ability to stand in the pocket, be poised, know where everyone's supposed to be, make snap reads. There are only a few guys, a handful of guys that do it at an elite level in the world, right? So when we rush these college kids that play in spread offenses and guys are running wide open all day long, and we're throwing them to the wolves and expecting them to play at a high level, I think we're setting them up for failure more times than not.
And that's how they become labeled busts and stuff.
Right.
Really,
so I
they
think
probably aren't busts, but
this is the best thing that could have ever happened to Sam Howell. Best thing that could have ever happened to him. Going to 5th round and just continue to learn and develop.
Yep.
And see, maybe it'll be terrible, and that's fine. And that's fine. You didn't waste anything.
Exactly.
I'm going to throw a few at you real quick here. Okay. So this is kind of a little bit of a lightning round. We'll do an over under aspect here. This one's more of just a yes or no. Payne plays his last year in DC this season.
I bet pretty strong. I bet decent amount of money on that. Yeah. I think that's it.
What are your odds that Chase is defensive player of the year?
0. 0. I mean, listen, we both went to the same high school. We know a lot of the same people. I root for him, but I've just been so disappointed so far. So I'm kind of being a jerk on purpose. Not that it means anything, but I just want to see the kid reach his potential. That's all I ever want.
I think he needs to get challenged. Yeah, I think he needs to get challenged. Last one with the over/under, Carson Wentz, 30 touchdowns. It's been like 6 to 8 decades since
he threw 27 last year.
Yeah,
I mean, I know he's capable of it, but I'm going to go under. I mean, I'll go under. I'm not a dummy.
You got an extra game. You got 17 games now.
Listen, I'm not saying he can't. I definitely think he can, and he has weapons. But I mean, if I'm going to put my money on it, I'm going to bet under, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. Same.
But I think the 27 number is a great number.
Because look what he had with the 20. Like he had way less weapons.
People always talk about too. If you look at this, and believe me, I'm not a stat guy that's all into all those, all the high end analytics. I'm an old guy, but when you actually do look at the analytics for what the offensive line did, everyone talks about how great his offensive line did because his running back was so successful. They did not grade out that high in pass pro. Their pass protection grades were in the bottom third for sure. Might even be in the bottom 5.
Yeah, I think it was in the high 20s.
Yeah. So this line, now I think this line, and I think it was Stoner that pointed this out last year, right? That this line might be a little overrated because we dump off all the time. So then we don't get
Nathan. Yeah.
So we don't get sacked as much.
Yes.
But if he can get improved line play and he's got better weapons, I look for Carson to be okay. I think he's going to be okay.
I do too. I'm with you.
Look, I'm optimistic. What do you want me to tell you?
That's good. That's good. I think this is actually one of the things that a lot of local media has been getting kind of knocked around a little bit for how they talk about the team. You talked a little bit about how, you have to be critical of them in your role. So, it's good that to me, and this is what we tell Stoner, it's like, now's the time to be optimistic. They're going to go 17-0 until we find out otherwise. And so that's important, right? That's important to have that hope for the fandom. We got a young fan here, Ben, who joined us at the draft.
Another
question for you.
The answer is no.
And he says, okay, so he won't win Defensive Player of the Year, but do you think Chase can at least win Comeback Player of the Year?
I think that's on the table. Yeah, I think that's on the table. Sure. I mean, listen, I think Chase has tremendous ability. Right? I think he's been
generational when he came out.
Yeah, I think he's been blessed by God, and you aren't just born that way. He's obviously worked very, very hard, right, to get to where he is. But I still think he's got to become a little bit more, from my perspective, and I don't know anything, but I think he's got to be a little bit more of a student of the game, right? And even Ron admitted, you got to have counters. You can't just run the same rush, over and over and over for 9 weeks, right? I want to see you have the ability to do. There's nothing I don't think he can do on the football field. So let's see the full array. Bring your entire toolbox. Don't just bring one tool.
Because his rookie year, nobody knew what to expect, but now there's tape on you, bro. So it's obvious you're gonna have to switch up your scheme.
You have to adjust. But even if you look at his first sack is a pro, right? Against Philly. Beautiful spin move, spun inside, boom.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't see that at all last year. I mean, if we did, I missed it.
No, a lot of running deep.
Yeah, he ran deep.
So, and it's not a coincidence that when Chase went down, the sort of by committee unit played better. Guys stayed in their lanes, right? And again, I'm not a defensive coordinator. I don't pretend to be. But that's what it looked like to me as a fan.
All right, one last question for you here, there, EB, before we let you go here. Grayson asks, what about Jamin Davis? Do you think he bounces back, or is he going to be labeled a bust even after this next season? Obviously, a rough rookie year for the young man.
But here's the thing about Jamin, and I don't even blame him. I never, in a situation like, now Chase I might blame because I just think God gave him so much talent. Let's reach your potential. And Jamin is kind of in the same way. Like, I think he has so much talent, but I don't think the coaches utilized him right. When they drafted him, and listen, I didn't study him in college, but I did what everybody did. I went to YouTube and I watched all of his highlights were coverage. They were in space. He wasn't a thumper, and then all of a sudden they're trying to play him at middle linebacker. I'm like, what are they doing? And I don't know. Again, I can't emphasize enough that I don't know anything. But when I see that, like, what is going on? So I think what I think they did is they said, well, this kid is a freak. He's, I'm sure he's a smart kid. So we're just going to put him at middle linebacker, and we're just going to take our lumps. But you know what? Sometimes it just doesn't work, and it takes a lot of reps to get to that. You know what I mean? He doesn't look to me like he's had a lot of those reps. So let's put him outside. Let's put him in space. Let's have him in coverage. Let's have him go sideline to sideline, utilize that speed, and then I think that you will see a much better player.
I agree. That's
my guess.
Because my whole argument was, why are you putting this role on the player when you drafted him to be, and the whole preseason before draft, it was sideline to sideline speed. He's a great cover linebacker. So why did you just go ahead and put him at the middle linebacker where he's never played, and then he looks like he did on the field? So I agree with you.
I think they outsmarted themselves a little bit. I think they said this kid has all the ability in the world. There's no reason why he can't do it. But again,
and that brings up this question: If Ron Rivera and JDR are linebackers, wouldn't you think they would know automatically? Like, is that some kind of like, what is that?
I just think everybody's different. Like some guys you might be able to do that. Yeah. Some guys, you know what I mean? Everyone's different. Everyone's learning curve's different. Everybody's like spatial awareness is different. And, obviously he played a certain way his entire career. It was a difficult transition for him. So I still think he's a physical freak. So let's just put him in a place where he's been successful before, and then let's reevaluate him. Because believe me, I was hard on him, but it almost wasn't fair. Because I think they were asking him to do things that he wasn't comfortable and used to doing. And I think they know that.
Got to let those instincts take over and just play the game. We want to thank EB for jumping on here with us, and make sure you check him out during his show there on the Sports Junkie on 106.7 The Fan. If you're not a morning person, maybe you miss it for whatever reason. You can also catch that on Odyssey as well. And I know that's where our man Stoner listens to all his junks. Hasn't missed an episode for like 10 years or whatnot. So EB, thanks for joining us here on Ref the District, and we'll be sure to have you back on another time. Thanks, EB.
Thanks, you guys.
EB. Yes, sir.
When we come back for the post game, we're not going to see this man in the big face. We're actually going to be all equal here.
Who was it? I wasn't even looking.
For the cool down, rather. It was you. For the cool down, we'll be talking about that Caps victory. Stick with us. All right, so I lied a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about what the EB brought to the table, what he talked about, and then we'll talk some Caps there. Great comments and questions coming there. We're going to give a shout out Milton, Aubrey, Tanner, Connor. We did not necessarily get to your question. I apologize for that. He asks, will Brian Robinson be the starter over AG midway through the season?
Nope.
if you would have asked EB, he seems a little bit more bullish on Robinson than most. So he might have said, probably something along the lines if Gibson continues these fumbling issues, then yes, you'll see Robinson take over. I don't think so. I don't think that Robinson's going to take over. I think Gibson's going to have a very productive season. And hopefully one of the things you want to see with your running backs is you do want to see a little bit of a rotation so they stay healthy throughout the year.
Yeah.
And then you can run the ball in the playoffs, keep some of those high profile offenses off the field as much as possible, which Washington, when they were on that win streak, that's what they did, right? Those 4 games was 10-minute drives. That was great.
Bro, and maybe this pick was sneaky smart because maybe they've seen enough to realize that AG is not progressing at the running back position as fast as they want to. So maybe they bring in Brian and they can stick AG back to what he was doing in college, being a wide receiver / running back. And that's just another weapon, another position of weaponry that we have. We could use Brian in the back and JD back there too and line up AG in the slot. Or you could line up AG and JD in the slot and have Brian in the back like that. So maybe it was a sneaky good pick. It wasn't just to take AG's job. It's maybe to let AG be more comfortable because he's not that comfortable taking the tailback spot.
AG did, speak out and say that he would desire to be, used more in the passing game, maybe be kind of a Deebo Samuel. I know a lot of people look at Curtis Samuel as the one who Washington
not anymore now.
Use. But this injury, I think that he's going to bounce back. I think that Curtis Samuel is going to have a good year. I do think that Dotson's going to eat into some of his touches. But I'd love to see Gibson used more fluidly in that offense in a way rather that I'm really excited for that. So
I am too. That kind of
but it kind of goes back to what Trev you were asking EB about is that why were they putting a guy in a position that he's not comfortable with? Maybe they did that with Gibson as well. Maybe
exactly.
They tried to force him into a position that he's just not comfortable enough with.
I agree.
Now maybe they move him to where he is more comfortable.
I don't know. It starts to make more sense when you say it that way.
That might be too many weapons if there's ever such a thing. If you've got Robinson in the backfield,
that's a great problem.
You got to keep your defensive guessing.
It is and Mclaurin.
You don't know now. You don't know where the ball's going.
Right,
you don't know who's lining up where because now you got all these people that can line up in more than one position.
Yeah.
By adding Brian, you could. So hey,
it's a good problem.
I love the pick even more now.
Yeah, but I
still my least favorite pick. I'll say that.
It's not my favorite pick. And again, it's not the player. But I think you could have got equal talent in later rounds, right? Like if Cole Turner was drafted where Robinson was drafted, for example,
round to the fifth,
right, and he was drafted in the 3rd round. You might say, "Man, couldn't I have gotten that in the 5th round or something? Couldn't you have gotten a talented running back in the 5th round and use that 3rd rounder on something that's a little bit more pressing need instead of something that you already are stacked?"
And maybe, I guess not because the running back class really wasn't. I mean, you had Kenneth Walker, Breece Hall, and I honestly forgot about Brian Robinson until they called his name. I didn't even know he was in the draft.
Right. It was not what I was expecting. Yeah.
So, maybe that was the best running back at that position that we couldn't afford to wait on if we wanted that.
Maybe.
So it's just hard to tell.
Running backs are a little bit different than quarterbacks, though, in that I think you can find a ton of running backs.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But maybe not this year. Maybe not this year.
Yeah, and you're right, and maybe not this year.
You can always go the Patterson route and get an undrafted free agent who potentially has something. That's undrafted free agents. They often do shine, especially in running back positions. They just need the right opportunity. We're going to keep it up with this Commanders talk because we have some questions rolling in here. Grayson asks, where do you all see Dotson playing with Samuel? Both healthy, obviously.
I see us running 4 wide receiver sets and having them both in the slot. I see us using him a lot more in the offense than we probably anticipated, especially now since we just signed Alex Erickson, who's a punt returner and kick returner. And I know there's a rumblings coming out saying that Dotson took those snaps in college and that could happen. But now with that move, that just makes me think that he's definitely going to be on the field lining up next to Terry and Curtis. So I think kind of like in a similar DeAndre Carter role last year, he came in and took a couple, but that was by injury. So I don't know. Maybe this is a sign that Adam Humphries is gone, but he did get
Adam
a jacket.
Humphries is gone. Dax Milne's gone.
I think
AGG
Dak's still
is
there because
gone.
I think
Kelvin
AGG's gone.
Harmon's
Dak
gone.
stays. Kelvin stays. I think Adam is done because he's a slot receiver. We have Curtis now. We have Jahan Dotson now. Hell, we can even line AG in the slot now with that Brian Robinson move. Terry lines up in the slot some. So I just think they'll be on the field together at some point. I think because I don't really think they're giving up on Curtis Samuel right now, especially Ron Rivera's coach from Carolina. He knows what he has in Curtis Samuel. Go
Would
ahead.
you hate this? Would you hate this? And I do that. I think I probably do this every week. Would you hate?
I love it.
Running across from sideline to sideline. Here's your weapons.
Okay.
You've got Terry, then you've got Curtis in the slot.
All right.
And then on the other side, you've got Dotson in the slot.
Okay.
And then you've got Diami.
Okay.
Or that's where you put Gibson. And then in the backfield, you've got Robinson.
I love it.
Or McKissick.
That's
Carson Wentz is probably going to stand there and go, there's
Who the
5
hell-
guys open. Who the hell am I going to throw it to?
And they're all fast.
And they're
all fast.
Speed demon. Robinson's not.
And
But
then
if McKissick's in there or Gibson's in there.
Can
factor in
score from
the
anywhere.
Logan at tight end or Cole or even John Bates. Hell, I like John Bates at tight end. He showed last year that he has potential to being an important piece on our offense, even with Logan Thomas, you know? So I like that lineup across the board. I even like Cam Sims on the outside.
I think he probably plays outside before
Terry
De'Ami
on the
Brown,
outside, and then Diami, Curtis, Jahan Dotson. If you can find to keep Adam Humphries because he's a nice security blanket, Gibson, whoever plays slot is fine. So I like our receiving core across the board. I really do.
And all I ask for personally, and nobody listens to me, but all I ask for is every possible weapon to help Carson Wentz succeed.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they did that. And
That's
they
why
did
we
that.
love the wide receiver
that's what
pick.
I'm
We wanted an
saying.
offensive weapon, and Dotson
Look
was
what
there.
he threw damn near 30 touchdowns with Michael Pittman, a banged up T.Y. Hilton, and a Zach Pascal who started his career with us on the practice squad, but now he's getting money at somewhere else.
Yeah.
So he didn't really have his number one was Michael Pittman. No offense, but he's a good receiver, but he's not a number one, but he wasn't that
He
spot.
break out this year, but I don't know that he's going to do any better with Matt Ryan than he did with Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I'm happy.
To get to the question there for Grayson, I think both of them, what's great about both Samuel and Dotson on this team, and even Terry, you can put them anywhere. You can put them to the outside and have, the three of them lining up, right? Terry, Dotson, and Samuel. Having any one of them in the slot is going to be a nightmare for a corner, like a cornerback or a linebacker to cover.
Yeah.
It's going to be really rough to cover that as long as they all stay healthy. And I think that's going to be great. Shout out Hawk TV joining us here as well. Now, I was looking at the snap counts, and it was interesting to see DeAndre Carter did end up playing 44% of the snaps at wide receiver, only caught 26 passes. Now, where do you feel with the Samuel Dotson? Terry McLaurin, let's say he gets 90 receptions?
Okay.
You think that's out of the realm of possibility?
That's probably right on. Yep.
Probably right on. Okay. Where do Samuel, they are healthy all season long. Where do Samuel and Dotson end up with receptions? We won't even talk yards, just receptions.
They split 70 receptions, 70 to 75 receptions.
I'd probably go over that.
Yeah, I think Curtis gets maybe like 10 more targets, 15 more than Jahan, just because of Ron's experience and the veteranship or whatever. But I think Jahan gets a lot of targets and a lot of receptions. And like you said, back to you, all three, Terry, Jahan, and Curtis, they all play the same way. They're all small. They're all fast. They can play anywhere, and they can all execute contested catches. We've seen it in Carolina with Curtis Samuel. He's run some goal line fades at contested catches. We've seen it all career with Terry. And we saw on the highlight tape with Jahan Dotson. So they all are similar, very similar receivers. Like you said, Nathan, it's going to be scary because you locked down Terry 2 times. Okay, well, who's going to cover Dotson and Samuel? They're both lightning fast too. Same player as Terry. It's just so. Yeah, I agree with you, Nathan. There's no drop off.
And that's why I think personally that this is a make or break year for this staff.
Oh, for sure. Because
Coach Rivera, and Turner, and all these guys. Because
now you got a quarterback.
Now you got a quarterback. Now you got weapons. If you can't exploit that and win a bunch of games against, as EB said, against a weaker schedule, right? And a weak-ish division, right? If you can't be successful with that, then you're just not going to be successful.
No,
and we can't keep continuing to put you out there. So this is a make or break year for the staff. I think it is. If they win 7 games, I think they're all gone. I think they have
especially
to win
by the way they executed this offseason. They didn't really get the big name free agents like they did last year. They just kind of got the needed position. Same with the draft. We drafted needs, not the big splashy names that make our offense and draw tickets, but that can really fit our scheme and our organization. So like you said, the way they did their due diligence and executed their offseason plan, now if that doesn't translate with all the better things that you've gotten in the offseason, besides Carson Wentz, that's a big name. And like you said, if it doesn't work, everybody's gone.
Yeah.
Everybody's gone.
You can't win 6 games and say, "Hey, we're still working."
Part of the process.
Bro.
That'd be the only way that they would be retained. I think is if there was again catastrophic injuries to the team. But even then, you have to start wondering whether or not it's time to start anew. Going along with the Samuel talk here and where he's going to line up with Robinson, a true running back. Does Samuel not see any of these Debo Samuel type of touches? I'm going to take this one first. And what I'm going to say here is I don't think Curtis Samuel ever should have been taking Debo Samuel type touches. I think that that he is not necessarily built. And obviously he had the injuries there or injury that kept him out. He's not one I feel is going to necessarily be explosive. Sure, run a jet sweep, sometimes maybe run a wildcat type thing, bubble screen type thing. But for the most part, you don't want to be splitting him into a Debo Samuel role. You want him to be a wide receiver, out of the slot, find ways to get him the football. But I don't think that he needs to be getting Debo type touches. And Stoner, what do you think?
Well, I will say this, and I think you're exactly right what you just said there. And I'm starting to get Debo Samuel fatigue, right? I'm getting tired of everybody saying that every team needs a Debo Samuel type player. You don't. It worked great for San Francisco. That doesn't mean every team has to do that to be successful. I mean, it's not like San Francisco had this incredible offense all year.
No.
But Debo Samuel did carry them because he's a special player. But you don't need it to be successful. So I'm getting a little bit of that fatigue. I've had enough of everybody needs, we need somebody on our team to play.
It's also the first year Debo Samuel took that particular type of role.
Yeah.
So he hates that.
So figure out different ways to get playmakers the ball in situations to make them successful. And San Francisco figured out a way to do that with Debo Samuel. That doesn't mean Curtis Samuel has to get 4 running plays every game. It just means you got to figure out how to do that, whatever that means. And like you said, maybe it's some jet sweeps, maybe it's some bubble screens, whatever it is, you've got to figure out ways to make these guys successful.
And San Francisco used him like that because they didn't have any other, way of scoring.
He really was the option that they had.
He was the only option. If he wasn't open, then they looked down to George Kittle, which is another good option. But that's the only way they could score points was to make Debo.
Yeah,
I mean, nobody said that until he asked for a trade. Nobody was asking 2 months ago, is anybody going to play a Debo Samuel role until he said I need a trade? And now it's like, oh, well, are you going to play a Debo Samuel role? I'm not taking shots at anybody asking that, but like I'm back in Stoner's point. You don't need a Debo Samuel to win.
Yeah,
because obviously they had one, they didn't win.
They won pretty well, but they
did pretty well. But what it comes down to is you want the playmakers to have the ball. Curtis Samuel is one for the Washington Commanders. but I don't necessarily think that it
No,
needs to be
using the
in that
same
capacity.
way.
You know, look at his first game with the Commanders. He caught 4 passes, 3 of them were for first downs. You know,
Right.
let him move the chains. You know, Trev, you keep mentioning Humphreys. I don't think we need Humphreys to be back. I think that this wide receiver group is going to be pretty good with the 5 being Terry, Samuel, Dotson. You got Cam Sims and
right now we don't know.
Yeah, obviously, but like who's 6 and 7, I don't necessarily think is going to be all that important. And you got a couple of young guys in the practice squad. These tight ends are going to get there. Going back to that question of like where we're going to, you know, what the catch count for these guys are going to be. It's going to be pretty interesting. I think for Dotson to be seen as successful as a rookie, especially spending the first round pick on him, I would say, you know, and disagree with me if you can in the comments or if you want to in the comments. But I think for him to be successful, I think you're looking at minimum 40 catches and well over 500 yards. So I think that's where it needs to be for him to be successful.
He can get 20 catches. He can just take bombs, like stretch the field. Something that
20 catches, 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. I don't think that's a successful first round pick.
But it's what we were. I mean, 20 receptions, 300 yards may not be stat wise good, but it's helping our team.
If it's for sure, if it's 20 catches, 300 yards, and 4 touchdowns,
that's fine.
Have the 5th ranked offense in the league. And you win 11 games, then
I'm cool with that.
Then it's great. But if he has that,
he shouldn't get 40 catches. That means
he had a terrible offense.
That means trouble. I kind of agree. If he gets 40 catches, and that means Terry gets 90, that's 130 catches between Terry and Jahan. Now we got to factor in Curtis Samuel, who's a huge part of our offense already. Like you said, they brought back Logan Thomas,
Gibson,
JD.
Cole Turner taking those red zone touches.
John Bates. So 40 catches is kind of a lot to expect from someone who wasn't drafted to be the guy, but to be a compliment to our guy. I think 20 catches, 500 yards, because they're going to be bombs. That's what he caught. His yak was crazy.
Yeah. And what if he has only again 30 catches, but Mclaurin has 112 for 1,400 yards because he's now freed up because people have to pay attention to Dotson.
Exactly. So it's hard.
Just go with stats.
No.
You have to look at it.
There's context. There's context.
There's context. Yeah.
We just have to wait and see. But I will say, usually, if you have only 20 catches out of your first rounder, it's probably a problem.
It's a problem.
Well,
so
we'll see.
I don't have it in front of me. I had actually the stat in front of me as far as the first rounders. I think since 2018, wide receivers taken, they've averaged 31 receptions and 75 or 73 targets, somewhere in that range.
Diami had 26 or something, didn't he? I mean, Diami Brown numbers. Then
Diami got targeted 6 times.
he was on the field for 29% of the snaps, and he was targeted. Let's see here.
How was he targeted?
I think he had 40 targets, maybe.
Looking at 25 targets, 12 receptions.
So he had 20 catches.
Yeah, bro, he wasn't a factor at all.
Yeah. Well, he was. I think he was open a lot more, but I mean, the problem was, and he started seeing the field a lot less, is with Taylor Heineke there.
Yeah,
but Tanner says, given the number of options, 40 catches, that's fine. That's one of the things we talked about here. Grayson says, as long as he's better than Dotson. Matt, how many are we up to on the counter now, Stoner, as far as calling him Josh instead of Jahan?
You are.
I know I got 1 in there
because you said it. You kept saying it over and over, and you're like, it's Josh Dotson. I'm like,
it's like,
no, it's not. And then you were like, oh, wait, what am I saying? It's not Josh Dotson. It's Jahan Dotson.
I'm excited for this year, you guys.
It's going to be good. I think that there's a lot of good things, to be excited. Maybe we're being Ashburned all over again.
No, we're not using that term anymore. Okay?
That's not Ashburn.
We're being
Ashburn is when you get to camp and you start getting it all in all your ears and all your eyes.
Bro, Jamin Davis is so fast. He's going to be the defense look of the year.
Oh
my God, Jamin Brown is so fast. Bombs all day. Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's screaming for the touchdown. Oh my God.
We're all 17-0 until we're not.
Yep. And then week 1 happens bro.
And then you're like, oh, bro. Bro, we're in trouble.
The official schedule will be coming out for the NFL pretty soon, so we're looking forward to that.
Next week is this weekend is
this weekend for rookie minicamp.
Yeah. Yep. And then the schedule releases next week.
Get really excited to see these rookies and see what they come out there. Pretty excited about it. Rookie mini camp. We're looking forward to, hopefully, if they have training camp, we'll be there live as well. Yes. Stoner will not be with us the next couple of weeks as he's going to be with family. Don't worry. We're shopping around for some good fill-ins, our Stoner stand-ins, as we're going to be calling them. So you're definitely going to keep checking us out. But before we leave, I was about to leave, but I was just like, Stoner, let's hear about your Stoner recaps.
Yeah, bro.
And how did those Caps do last night? Fill us back in.
Caps played a tremendous hockey game last night. It was great to see. They went on the road. They played the number 1 team in the NHL, the best team record-wise in the NHL, the best home record in the NHL. They were down 2-1 going to the third. Florida Panthers this year went into the third period with the lead 25 times. You know how many games they won?
25.
25.
Well, technically they won 24, lost 1 in regulation, but they did not lose in regulation in all 25 games this year. And the Capitals, old, decrepit, slow, too old to hang with these young fellas, came back in the third period and held the highest scoring team in the league to only 2 goals and won 4-2. It was a great win. It was gutsy. It was gritty. Their goaltender played much better than we all thought. And so I'm excited. They've taken home ice advantage away from the Panthers in game 2, Thursday night, 7:30 p.m. back down in Florida.
And Stoner will be live tweeting from the Ref the District account.
Absolutely.
And then be on there for his second Stoner recaps here on our YouTube channel. Be sure to check that out. Join us again next week, 7:30 Eastern on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And if you're on YouTube, make sure you do a favor and subscribe. Do yourself a favor and subscribe to the channel. It costs you nothing. Yeah. However, I brought up at the draft, and I see the hand raise. We're going to get to Trev here in a little bit. We at the draft, I mentioned that we're going to have a giveaway. It's not quite ready this week, but stay tuned to the channel. We'll let you know what's going on. It's going to have Commander's gear. It's going to have new Ref the District gear. That's what we're kind of waiting on right now. So, but to win, I guarantee you, you're going to have to be subscribed. That's the one thing that's set in stone. You're going to have to be subscribed to the channel, and we'll have some good gear coming up for that giveaway. So stay tuned for that. Trev, you had something to add before we close out officially?
I'm going to go back to hockey, believe it or not. I don't know Jack squat about it, but Stoner.
Yes, sir.
We came back and won 4-2.
Yes.
Did we use all of our energy to do that, or are we can we carry that momentum over to game 2, or do you think we use it all for game 1 and we're just gonna game 2 predict, like, what is your game 2 prediction?
Yeah, that's a good question, because again, this team is older, but it wasn't one of those games where they had to put everything into it to come back. They just played their game, and they play a heavy game, which means they do a lot of forechecking, so to try and get turnovers from the other team. And then once they got the lead, this is a little hockey geeky, but what Florida likes to do is because they're young and they're fast, they like to carry the puck into the offensive zone, right? Most teams kind of they throw the puck in and go after it, like the Caps do, and they pound guys against the boards to try and get the puck. Yeah. Well, Florida likes to carry it in. That's their specialty. Once the Caps got the lead, they basically lined 4 guys up at the blue line and didn't let anybody through. And they kept turning it over, and they couldn't adjust. So Florida is going to adjust to that. They're going to have to adjust to that. Okay. And it's not going to be catastrophic if they lose. They still have home ice, right? Because they took one on the road.
But AB says we don't play well at home, so we kind of really do need to win this one.
Weird. It's weird. They normally play at home. If you look at the crowd in Florida, it was dead. Dismal. It was not a good crowd. When they come back Saturday night,
it's going to be rocking.
It is going to be
especially if they're up 2-0, right? It's going to be
But I didn't say this to EB, but the year after they won the cup, their first round matchup, they were against Carolina. They won the first 2 on the road, and then they came back and got beat 4 straight games. So everyone was like, "Oh my God, this is awesome! We won the first 2 on the road," and then they just got pushed around a little bit. So
that's not going to happen this time. We're going to keep that positive attitude here on Ref the District. The Caps are going to win. The Commanders are going to win. The Wiz will do something. And the Nationals will continue playing the game of baseball. Hopefully they'll sign Juan Soto. That one's going to be interesting. We'll keep you informed here on Ref the District. And until next time,
do what?
Be a fan.
We love Washington, and we some die-hard fans. Yeah, we are. You know we keep it on 10. 1, 2, 3, let's go. And they gifted. We are Ref the District. Podcast. Come on out.